And I'm not saying this is, but if Rory's not Scotty and the ownership is still going to be similar, not 48, but probably 38 to 42, let's just call it and put a number on it, we do see where if it's not Rory, it is Thigala, Fleetwood, Lowry, Noren, Cam Young, some of these guys finding their first win.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Code Mayo and Underdog Fantasy right now. Get yourself a deposit bonus of up to $250. The Pat Mayo Classic is now open for drafting round one of the Canadian Open. Hopefully by next week, we will have some sort of announcement of a new contest on Underdog for some golf pick'em, which Tambo and I will be going over today. But get your ass in the drafts. Let's get that all filled up. It's rake-free, so it's guaranteed money. I don't know why you wouldn't play in it. I've already drafted one of the worst teams of all time in it. So, but Tambo, I'm hoping that works out in my favor. You don't want to have the good team on paper in these one-round drafts.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Speaking of good teams, last week got you with my team, so we'll get to that later too. But I'm excited to get back into it. I did not win on my pick'em with rivals last week that we did, so I want to make up for it this week and find something here.
Fortunately, we got out of the Max Homa business at the last second, so it didn't look as bad as it could have.
That's true. Wow, bad week for Mr. Homa.
I like that you brought up that, you beat me in the head-to-head. You had a good lineup. You also won like 90 grand.
No, not quite. No, these are value, Pat. Value
adds. Sorry.
Value adds. These are Fantasy Golf World Championship seeds, but as usual, as people know, with King of the Beach, King of the Desert, and on this show, viewers of the show, smash the like, subscribe to the channel, rate and review. Might be a little celebration nation if we get one of these things through to the final where I give away a bunch again. So you guys know how I do it. I didn't really think of it coming in today, but I did want to make sure it was announced early, repost the tidbits, do everything that's required for the show. But, probably up to, 25, 30K that I would give away, get to the finals and get something like a top 3 in there. That's what I'm thinking. So, I'm going to be pretty generous with it if we get down to the finals and get a trophy on the shelf.
Get a trophy on the shelf, get a nice check for 6 figures, maybe 7 figures.
I think it's $1,600,400 this year. So there'll definitely be a huge giveaway.
In the finals at Detroit?
It's at the Rocket Mortgage Classic.
So,
right?
So what's the lead up to it? Like, how many rounds are there?
This week is the 300 entries. I have 3 of those 300. It's anybody who makes it into the top 150 moves to next week. Next week is 150 down to 50. They bumped it up from previous years where it was 40. So 50 will move on to the live final. And then I believe it's the U.S. Open and then nothing at that. And then it moves on to Michigan for the...
No, then it's Travelers. Then I think it's Rocket Mortgage.
So there might be 2 full weeks off between. But it is this week and next week for the first 2 rounds.
It's funny that they make round 2 the no cut memorial.
Man, maybe now you're...
Maybe there is a cut at memorial. But I think it's one of those like Riviera, Bay Hill, 15-person.
Oh, memorial, you're right, of the signature events is the last of the 3 that have the top 50 in ties plus anyone within 10 or whatever it is. So that is correct there. But now you are making me second guess how this thing's playing out because of the Travelers factor. You mentioned that, and I was just trying to think.
But that's the no cut signature event. They'll have like 74 people in it or something.
Yeah, so round 1 is definitely this week. And then round 2 is June 6th to June 9th, which would be next week. And then you're right, it does go all the way to June 27th to the 30th at the end of the month. So there's quite a break in between before everybody gathers back at the final.
Well, I like this. You get to use some of the top-end guys this week, be it like Rory or Sahith or whoever, Tommy. And then you get to use all of the best guys next week at a signature event. Mm-hmm. And then you have to wait 2 weeks and use absolute nobodies and scrubs.
A lot of people hate this format. We talked a little preseason on it when you, myself, Hoop, did the strategy show about it. And I've got it in the course over at Chip It Nation. Code Mayo gets you a discount. But just to note, we talk about the 3-tier strategy. Some people hate it because they say, well, it doesn't make any sense. I want a tournament to get in, like a high variance tournament to win a seat. Then I got to go play a cash game in round 1, 300 down to 150. Then I go revert back to like a hybrid of like 50 out of 150. And then there's different like types of feel, but I think it's more pure. Like you have to battle through everything. You have to be the best to beat the best. And in Fantasy Golf World Championship, if you're going to be the champion, you really take on everything along the way to have to get there and then what you have to do to go on and win.
Well, what they should do is have 4 rounds, and the 3 rounds, actually, 4 rounds. So you whittle down the top 50 of the live final to the top 16. Then you have to play head-to-head for each showdown round of the next tournament.
Oh, gosh, that would just be a lot. Yeah, you're inventing tournaments as we go. Might have something we have to add. Maybe the Pat Mayo experience. We get that in there.
All right, well, let's talk about Underdog this week for round 1. Looking at the weather looks great.
Yeah.
And the course has softened up a bit from all the rain that they've had, but basically no wind, good temperatures the entire week. The one thing that I did note using Fantasy National from the 2019 stats, there are 7 holes on this course that have a birdie or better rate of 20% or higher. Obviously, some of the par 5s get up to like 40% with a high eagle rate as well. But there's also 8 holes on this course that have a bogey or worse rate of 20% or higher. It's not as easy of a course as I think the people seem to think that it is, just because Rory tore it apart in 2019. That I do think it's a nice week to try to do some anti-correlation with the Pick'Em, because the system doesn't know. Because usually, like, if you just take under scoring kind of thing, like 69.5, I'll go under that, or 68.5, I'll go under that, and you start correlating all these unders together, then it's going to give you a worse payout, because it's like you're trying to do the same thing over and over. The same thing if you just take everyone higher 3.5 birdies.
Yep.
But what you can do to game the system a little bit is take some higher of 3.5 birdies, 4 birdies, whatever it might be, then just go pick some other people and be like, oh yeah, higher than 1.5 bogeys, 2.5 bogeys, whatever it might be, and you'll end up getting a better payout because of it.
And both those can hit. That's why I say I love these all the time. We talked about this last week, doing this segment instead of the Pat Mayo Classic. That's what I like about it. It's like the dude can make 4 bogeys and 4 birdies and end up hitting both his hires. But like you said, if you game it on different guys for different scenarios, for birdies or bogeys, higher or lowers, that's how you can up your payout a little bit.
So where do you want to go? Do you want to do 2 people, 3 people, 5 people? We can fill out this entry any way we want on Underdog. Code Mayo, by the way, get that deposit bonus of up to $250, and you're probably going to want to be on Underdog for the contest I'm hoping I can announce next week. Because if you're not, then you can't play in it, and there's money up for grabs.
Yeah, I'm all for money up for grabs. I actually think I'm trying to remember, because when Kenny and I were doing this segment, I think it was Nelson Adcock running Cut Sweats over there, great dude. I believe he said the answer is 3. Like you want to have the 3 on there versus the 2, even though it's like, oh, I know you're adding extra to it, but when he calculated the EV and the setup of it, it was actually better just to put 3 on.
Yeah, from what I'm not the one doing this research, from research that I've read, and it kind of goes different site to site. On Underdog specifically, it's the 3-pick entry or the 5-pick entry is going to give you the best odds for the amount of legs that you have on each entry. So we'll try to do a 3 here because you can get 5x. You can win 5 times your money, which is better than you would do with like a 3-prop parlay kind of thing. So that's sort of the sweet spot on Underdog, if anyone's wondering about these. Let's take someone, birdies are better, higher.
Okay, I want to ask you quickly about this because it ties in the weather segment quickly anyway, which you already just mentioned. But I will ask you just because, we're Canadian. It's our Canadian Open. A lot of other great Canadians in the space, but there's a lot of Americans in the space as well. And they'll tell you that this is not great weather, but it's great for Canada, right? They're obviously freezing. They're used to Texas and Florida and California and all of that. So the only reason I bring it up, Pat, is because like the mornings are, 50 to 55 Fahrenheit. That's cold for a lot of these golfers. And then the afternoon picks up to 65 to 70. So looking at like Pick'ems right now in round 1, do you think it's better for somebody right out in the morning where there has been the water a little bit coming in and it's softer and all of that? Or do you think it's better to let those temperatures, just because there's like no wind, nothing to worry about with wind? Obviously, we know how the course plays at least a little bit, right? We know a little bit about it, some of the renovations, all that. Do you think it's better to take these guys in the morning or afternoon, or do you think it doesn't matter for round 1?
Probably in the afternoon. Maybe that's a good way to look at it, where we can say on Thursday, hey, maybe we want to take the bogeys or worse guys higher from the very early tee times. I know Noren is out very early.
I like that one.
On Thursday
What's his
morning.
higher on that?
It's 2.5. It's basically 2.5 bogeys for everyone. And as it gets warmer throughout the course of the day, like I'm seeing it right now, like 8 a.m. on Thursday, 11 degrees. I mean, I played in 6 degrees the other day.
Sure. I mean, that's, again, what you would be used to and out there. But of note, speaking of hot, that's a scorcher. Higher, 2.5 bogeys or worse.
There we go.
For Noren, we got to add that one in right out of the gate. I like that one. It's a little anti-Noren. I know he's super popular this week, so I don't mind it. And again, people forget he could still finish the day at 2 under par. but have 3
Yeah,
bogeys on the
he
card.
could make 7 birdies.
Yes.
Go nuts. Make your 7 birdies. Just make your 3 bogeys along the way, too.
Okay, I feel good about where we're at right now. He starts very early in the morning. He's one of the first out, I believe. So, yeah, I like that starting point.
Yeah, I'll have all of the tee times. I know they were in your tidbits, but I usually put them in the newsletter as well.
Yep.
I released a newsletter yesterday afternoon. A lot of it, just some of the notes that I had made about the course, some historical stuff, a bit of a breakdown, some of the bets that I'm on, and I included EPAT's hole-by-hole breakdown, which was the
Incredible.
best piece of content that I saw this week.
Yeah, it was awesome. I talked about it on the Monday First Look show, just the way he did it. Again, it's a lot to do when you go through and actually compare the hole by hole and see it with the graphics and all that. But his takeaways, I thought, sort of told the story of what it seems like this will be from everything else I did look at. Going back to go through the whole thread afterwards, I can see why he had those takeaways. So I think he's dead on this week.
So Keith Mitchell is another one who's out pretty early. Guy's not scared to make some bogeys.
Yeah, I was looking at him, and I was looking at Bo Hostler goes out super early as well, but he is... he is also 2.5. I don't mind him or Mitchell.
Well, the way that I would look at it is Mitchell can't putt, so you might get a gimme somewhere, but he's also a significantly better ball striker. So you would think that he would hit more greens in regulation, that kind of thing, where Hostler's just going to be spraying it all over the place and have to rely on his scrambling in order to get himself up and down, but he tends to make a lot of those putts. So which one do you like better? Do you like the higher on bogeys of Mitchell or for Bo Hostler?
Man, that is really tough. Hostler seems like the easier play, just to make 3 bogeys.
I agree, actually.
So I'd be more comfortable with him. And I didn't see, I was just going back, scrolling up to find Mitchell here. Where is he at?
Mitchell's 2.5, and they're both juiced down.
Yeah, 0.9. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, for higher.
I'd be better with Hubbard or with Hostler, I think.
Okay, so we'll go Noren and Hostler. We're not even up to 3x yet because we've doubled down on the same thing. So now we need to find someone for higher birdies.
So who is in the Thigala or Fleetwood? Do you have a better feel for this?
I don't.
They're both 4.
They're both 4, but I think they're both different, yeah, because they're juiced down 4 each, right?
Yeah, they're both hires only.
So maybe there's someone else that we can find, like Sam Burns, for example, is just straight up higher or lower, or do you feel just better about those other guys?
What do you think about Burns this week? We're going to talk when we get there, but he's also in the morning. If we want birdies, let's try and go to the afternoon.
Okay, so let's pass on him. Where's Adam Scott? Because he's 3.5 at even.
He's in the morning. So guys in the afternoon that we could look between that I see are like Adam Hadwin, Aaron Rye, Corey Connors, Cam Young, Shane Lowry, Fleetwood.
Cam Young's the answer to this.
Okay, let's find Cam Young.
Let's see if his payout is any better.
No, but he's still at 4.
He's at 4, man, and it's higher. So he needs to get to 5. What's Aaron Rye's? Because I would even take that.
Oh, wow. Aaron Rye has a 3.5.
Yeah, I think this is almost the exact same one that I played yesterday. I'm okay with that. That we could go Nick Taylor as well. He is 3.5 birdies or better.
Do you want Rye action or do you want Nick Taylor action? Nick Taylor's in the morning. That solves it.
Okay, yeah. So Aaron Rye it is. So now I can't even find Aaron Rye on the stupid screen. Where are we at here? Let's just type in Rye. There we are.
I like this one.
Higher. Yeah, now we get up to 6.3. So the anti-correlation helps us out in this sense.
Yeah, so it's Alex Noren, 2.5 bogeys or worse, higher. It's Bo Hostler, 2.5 bogeys or worse, higher. And then it's Aaron Rye, 3.5 birdies or better, higher. And it's 6.37x.
All right. If you enjoy the logic that we just went down, go hit the description right now. I'll have the link where you can tail this, or if you think that we're morons, you can just go the other way on it and probably get an even higher payout on everything. But we're going to go in. 200 pays $12.74. And boom, we're off to the races.
$1,000 profit plus, just like that.
See if we can do it. Well, you only need to hit what? 1 of 6 of these to break even. If we can we lost last week. Hopefully we can get this one. Then we're up a ton of money.
I do think, again, I always think this way. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I do like applying logic to it and talking through it that way versus just saying, I know some people say that's easier for them. Like, I like Tommy Fleetwood. I like Thigala. I like this guy. And they just put their picks in. I get it, but that's what's awesome about Underdog, but I do like applying some of the logic, just like when I'm building lineups, of just putting some thought process behind it.
Yeah, and that's sort of the angle that I wanted to take, just because I know that the system isn't going to recognize that targeting guys to make more bogeys and targeting guys to make more birdies in the same entry is just going to throw everything out of whack. Like if you want to play a 5-banger, with this, like you could probably get the odds up to like 27, 28 to 1, something like
I love when we call them bangers. Just add that to the end, a 5-banger.
that. 5-banger.
But yeah, and the other thing that's nice about that is anybody playing on their own could agree with the logic, but not with the guys that we chose, and just go make it their own way and cross-reference it with their tee times in your email or in the tidbits and be able to see, oh, I actually like this guy instead, and I just noticed they're on there, and I don't want to mess with the 2.5s. I want to do it over here instead. So you can do lots of different stuff with these, and then you talked last week about the rival stuff as well. There's obviously more stuff coming all the time over at Underdog, so love to see it.
So the other thing you can do is on Fantasy National, we do have a higher, lower, over, under tool on these. Like if you wanted to run a few simulations on, you can just manually input the numbers of whatever the odds are because it's hard to get the API in. There is no API to feed directly into that, so you have to manually do it, but it will give you their historic performance, a simulation based on the course and the length of the holes that we're seeing player by player. So if that's just a different tool. It's a tool that we added and didn't even really announce, but it's in the top bar of Fantasy National if you want to go check that out right now. And Paul, you won some cash last week using the app, didn't you? It's your new jam for golf, using the Fantasy National app and hitting top 10s. I don't think his mic is plugged in.
He's testing it right now.
I didn't know I was gonna get called on. Yeah, I've just been using the app. It's really simple. You just look for guys that are striping their irons, that are like 5-6 strokes out of the hunt, and then play them for top 5s or top 5s, top 10s. But like Lipsky was 28 to 1 after round 2, being down like four strokes. It's like he's striping his irons. He's like leading the field with all of that. If he can hit some putts, he'll be in the mix. He got T9, but then the book I was using also pays out in full, which was helpful.
That is very helpful.
Yeah.
So the weather, we briefly mentioned it, but it rained Monday, it rained Tuesday. Wednesday's fine, so it's going to dry up a little bit. Not the warmest temperatures. You're not even getting it. It's not as warm as it is there as it is here right now. And as you mentioned early on in the morning, 9 degrees, 11 degrees, which is like 55, something like that.
Yeah.
And it will get up to 17, 18. Then over the weekend, it's actually pretty warm once you get into the early afternoons. So some of these guys might struggle a little bit with colder temperatures coming out of the gate. I like that you threw that on my radar. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, I definitely like that call. And then it even gets, a little bit warmer on Friday morning and warmer on Friday afternoon versus Thursday afternoon. So just noting that, but it's not like a huge edge or something. I always think about that. And with Underdog being the round 1 setup there, I definitely like it. You can apply some of it to DFS as well, but I think for sure it's just, a pretty nice week overall. Excited about this one. And as it's been mentioned on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it out there, hopefully don't get overshadowed by live events or the creation of live, the PIF live, Saudi deals, like all this different stuff. It sounds like we should get a pretty good week here, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I don't see a single, including gusts for wind, nothing over 15 miles per hour the entire week.
Yeah, love that.
So I don't see any sort of wave advantage unless you want to play a temperature wave advantage, but I'm not.
No, it's just more of sometimes I didn't look either, say if all the chalk is in a certain wave, but I will say when we get to that point, I'm going to have some questions, just curiosity on your end. I'm not sure if you remember last week, but Scotty ended up getting to almost 40. He set the record, 48, much higher than I thought 35 to 40 range. And what that did is it made a couple guys 20, and then everybody was 12 to 15, everyone. I wonder if we see something similar, but with a little bit of a hybrid because Rory won't get to 48.
That's the thing. Even the books are treating Rory like he's Scotty this week. But if there's one thing that we've learned, Rory's not Scotty. Rory's not this version of Scotty.
And the real takeaway is people in DFS definitely don't see Rory as Scotty. So it's not going to be a spot where people at the last minute turn the engine on and say, you know what? I watched all the content now. Let me just jam Rory like we saw with Scotty last week. Because I still think Scotty got a bit out of hand last week compared to what was thought. We thought 35 to 40, no problem. Maybe 50 in high stakes. Getting to 48 in the main lottery is not very common, and obviously it wasn't. It literally set the record and beat John Rahm in Mexico from a couple years ago.
What was he in high stakes? 70, 75?
65. In the the tournaments that I was in, mostly it was that for those seats, he was around 64%, 65%.
Did you need him?
He was awesome. Yeah, he came T2.
Yeah, I know that he came T2, but did you actually have to have him?
He was in. I don't know what the optimal ended up being, but I know that he ended up in a lot of the lineups. And I brought this up on the first look shows. Everyone says, yeah, but it's because he came T2. If you knock him down to 10th, he loses 13 finishing points. And couple of birdies, he still scores like 90 points or something, or 85 points. He was still going to be quite good versus what was around him. And again, that becomes the conversation. It's not just about Scotty and what he does. It's what do those do around him, and what does the pool that we can play with give us to work with. We talked about it at length last week that those 6K guys were just very solid. It actually ended up being a $5,800 guy winning, but 6K guys were still solid.
And that $5,800 guy was in your lineup.
He was. Davis Riley, shout out to my guy Lee Aldrich. He does the course fit rankings.
Number
over at
one
Ship It
in the
Nation.
course
Number
fit
one.
rank.
He's had Akshay number one when he won. He had Taylor Pendrith number two when he won, which was, I think, was next to Scotty or whoever else was. Who was in the week? It wasn't Scotty that week. It was somebody else. Who was the big guy? I forget now that Taylor Pendrith won, but it was like the top dog was one. Taylor Pendrith was two. So really good stuff over there. Those come included with any membership. And right now, Mayo is the code. That's the code in town, man. Gets you 10% off. It's the only one. There's no advertised anything out there. So if you want a deal, go over to Ship It Nation, use the code Mayo, and try it out. You will get access to those course fit rankings.
I'm wagering that I haven't looked at the course fit rankings yet, but Rory, number one?
Number two.
Number two, okay.
And someone said, how is this guy number one, but Rory's number two? They don't have the same game. I said, Rory is the course fit ranking, probably one for anywhere, because he can fit any course, just like a Scotty, but, it does factor in some other things. So the number one is really interesting this week.
Really? Someone you're going to use a lot of?
I'm going to definitely go back to the well.
Is it Corey Connors?
No. It's a much cheaper guy. But I will say this. That's what I said too. It's not just for these or my stuff or whatever. I mean, you've got Fantasy Nationals, so many resources out there. But I think what people always forget when I talk about building in sets or I talk about doing these things like last week, those were my course fit rankings lineups. I still had other lineups that we built on the show.
That didn't win.
I had other lineups that I liked. There's just different ways to build, but everyone says, oh, they're not going to win every week. No shit. You're not going to win every week either. Like if you're playing 45 weeks of PGA DFS golf, you're looking for 2, 3, 4 spike weeks. You've been there. You have a heater.
Listen, I can't be
Cover your
down.
whole season.
I talked about this with Byron. I went on Byron's show. Shout out Byron. We're going to move that show that he does on Tuesday nights to Mayo Media Network.
Awesome.
So if people want a live show about golf on Mayo Media Network, Tuesday nights with Byron. It's a solo show. He goes over his bets, his stat rankings, that
He is
kind
the
of thing.
model maniac.
Yeah,
He's got
is.
the models, man.
And he puts his model up on the screen and talks you through it and allocates his bankroll. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, people have really come around to Byron so far.
Oh, yeah.
Since he started doing the show. Obviously, he took over for you with Kenny. Now he's going to be doing this. So
Great combo.
yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun with him, starting next Tuesday night, I believe, for the Memorial is when that's going to happen. But we kind of talked through, he talked through my betting strategy. I don't really have a betting strategy. I just like to bet, and I want to get paid 6 to 9 times whatever I put in for the week.
Right.
So then if I can win once every 6 weeks, I'm going to be up for the year kind of thing. And with DraftKings, I won 4 GPPs in the first 2 months. I can't be down this year.
Right.
Because I've gone through the process of, I won 2 weeks in a row. I can't be beat now. I'm going to play 5 times what I normally play and then just lose it all. I've done that.
You're sticking to what you play, though, right?
Everyone's done that.
Yeah.
But now I just stick to what I play.
And you didn't need it. You didn't need to go crazy to spike your big win. You played what you usually play, and that's kind of the thing. Even the Fantasy Golf World Championship. Last year, a bunch of seconds, didn't make it. This year, right to the last draw, right to the last round of seats. So I'm right in the mix this week in the tournament because it was at the very end, but you're playing for that spike. It sucked all season. In the end, I got there. If you play to win, you put the time in, there's going to be opportunities throughout the season, but you just can't expect to win every week, and you are playing for those spike weeks. That's what you got to do.
Final bets for the week. I bet on Shane Lowry because I'm a loser at 26 to 1. I think it fits him really well.
Throw Fleetwood on there too.
I know I couldn't do that at 19 to 1. The 26 I just thought was a big number. Why is Fleetwood so far ahead of Lowry?
Because he lost in a playoff last year.
I mean, Lowry won 2 weeks ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a big winner.
Even Rory had to shake that one off and go get his own. He was like, that feels dirty.
And now Lowry needs to do the same thing at. The course designer also designed Royal Liverpool, Portrush, Wentworth, 2 of those courses where Shane Lowry has won. And this is one of the things that I talked to Byron about. It's why is it that even the Canadian Open in general, or why do a lot of British players or European Tour players have so much difficulty winning on the PGA Tour versus when you throw Tommy back into the Middle East, all of a sudden he's winning again? Strength of field, yes, that's obviously a concern, but there has to be other factors that go into it as well. I think it has, this is just me throwing out random things, and maybe someone who knows more about this can inform me. Gotta think there has to be something to do with the greens. They're either flatter in Europe, there's less undulation. They're faster in the U.S. Obviously, there's like more green types in the U.S. because you even see it between guys that are good in California and guys that are good in Florida. Like some guys just can't play in Florida and they dominate in California. John Rahm is kind of like a weird example of that. Not that he sucked in Florida, just he was amazing in California. Couldn't really do all that much over the course of his career in Florida. And you're switching from POA to Bermuda grass. Like it's just different. So I don't know what it is, but I do think that the Euros have had a lot of success at the Canadian Open. And they're all kind of the best players in the field this time around. So maybe this is a spot for Lowry or Fleetwood or whoever it might be. I'm going with Lowry. I used my 30% Bet365 boost on Cam Young, mainly because of the number. I got him up to 40-1. He's 30-1 there right now if you don't use the boost. But he was 30-1 in good fields. Now he's 30-1 in this field.
He's another one. I mean, this is what this event is all about. It's, obviously we got Rory and we'll get to that conversation, but with the Cam Youngs, the Tommy Fleetwoods, like this is where they're supposed to have the coming out party and just make it happen and win this event. But for whatever reason, I mean, Fleetwood last year, the way that thing shook out, obviously incredible for Canadians and the event, the history,
not
the
all
shot.
Canadians. I lost Tommy Fleetwood outright bet.
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't great for all, exactly, those that are betting, but they had him and not Nick Taylor. But I will say, like, that's obviously an incredible finish to an event. But the flashbacks I was saying on Monday of that freaking the playoff, having to play that hole over, I was like, please, just get away from this hole. It had the same shot off the tee, the backstopping, all of these things. So I was finally happy when Nick Taylor just ended that thing the way he did. I did not have Tommy, but I guess the Lowry game could be also like Lowry, Noren, Fleetwood, a lot of people are going to play sort of the long enough, accuracy, and then handsy. They're good around the greens.
Yeah. So
right?
I got Lowry and Young 26 and 40, Ryan Bhatia 55 and 55. Then I got Bryce Garnett at 160 with 5 places, and David Lipsky, who Paul just mentioned. Jeff Ulrich put the hard sell on him. I got him at 300-1 with 8 places. I bet Matt Anderson 33-1 as top Canadian. And I took Aaron Rye in the one and done. Jeff took Lowry, and Cuss took Noren. The other thing that I did with Byron is just we talked through like all these next guys after Rory, the kings of the top 10 who never win. So I parlayed Fleetwood, Noren, Lowry, and Cam Young top 10s together, and it pays like 107-1.
Yeah, I like that. Those type of bets are actually fun because it's legitimate. Like that's what could happen.
Those guys could all come inside the top 10.
Also, RBC Canadian Open, as we've seen a couple of these. Remember the year with like Rory, Finau, JT? It ended up being Rory, JT down the stretch, but not far behind. I think was Burns, Lowry,
Scotty.
Others, Scotty. Like everyone was in the mix. That was incredible. I think that was the live year that it had just formed. We were like, this is what the PGA Tour needed to drop the hammer on their little idea over there, and this was what the finish that we got, and it was amazing. So I think you could definitely see something like that here. The field is not even as strong as that year versus how those guys were playing and these guys are, so I like that bet.
And in 2019, when you went and looked at inside the top 10, it's all names. Mm-hmm. Like Rory wins, but the next 9 guys are all guys that were probably 60-1, 40-1, 25-1, whatever they were going to be. There was no real outliers inside the top 10, which was strange.
Yeah, which I think we'll talk about when we get to roster construction and building some lineups versus what the standard build will look like. But I will just say, too, also, what's your thoughts on Theegala this week? Because that's another guy that, don't you remember, like, we've been watching him lately just chipping everything in? Like, his around the green game has been phenomenal, besides Scotty, who also seems to be chipping quite a few things in. But Theegala was a guy that came to mind that he's long enough. If he can cross the trouble and be out there and just bomb it out there, and then he can be accurate at times, but when he's not, he sort of saves himself around the greens. He starts making these putts and gets hot. He's another guy that stood out that could get the job done here.
Yeah, Theegala and Burns were the two that I didn't really know what to do with this week.
Their numbers are kind of like and it's them, and it's like it also could go very bad, and like Burns could pull a homa. You could see that for sure.
I don't think Theegala would pull a homa just because he makes too many birdies on a consistent basis, and he's been good at these shorter courses throughout time as well. Same as Cam Young, very good at shorter courses and very good against weaker fields. Yeah. His last 3 starts in non-elevated events have all been top 10s. He just plays very few non-elevated events. But Theegala makes the most sense, I would actually say, because if he can have that spike iron week, he's like the best putter. Like people are betting Mac Hughes for exactly the same thing that Theegala does, but better.
Yep, and closes, and I think that's one of the things for me is like I was looking at it from a one and done perspective. I noticed on the Mayo Cup that Theegala is only like 40% available, and I really like him this week. And a lot of people have like Tommy and Noren and Fleetwoods and all that, and I don't really know what I'm saving Theegala for. So I was like, okay, I'll just use him here.
I was thinking the same thing about Cam Young. That maybe I have the two teams. So, yeah, maybe I'll use Thigala on one and use Cam Young on the other. If I have, no, I don't have Cam Young on that one. Double down on Thigala?
I don't mind. I just
Sam
said
Burns?
you could do a Thigala and a Burns and hope that one gets a nice boost, or maybe they do come 1-2. I don't know.
Well, Burns is interesting because I don't really know what to do with him this week. Again, I could see him being the Max Homa of this week. I could see him winning this event. But for one and done, no one's going to use Sam Burns.
Yeah, and the other question is how we see it play out when we get to DFS, but like Connors is right above him. So does Connors eat his lunch a little bit? And then even on paper, it looks like it's only a 5% gap, but then it ends up being like an 8 to 10% gap because everyone just piles on Connors there and others. So I think, yeah, he's definitely interesting in DFS as well.
I have Burns in my player pool right now, and I don't have Connors. So
I like them both, but it's how you use them. That's going to be what it comes down to. And this week, I think, is an interesting conversation about that.
The Pat Mayo Experience is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes you need to get something off your chest. Lord knows I do. And one of the biggest things that can cause is big stressors in our life. Whether they're big or they're small, bottling it all up can really start to affect us very negatively. And therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. And it's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries and really start to affect your life in a positive way. And it might even be some stuff that you're not even really thinking about that you can unlock and really start to improve your life for the better. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if you're not liking it. So, get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/PatMayo today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PatMayo. Well, let's talk about DraftKings and try to get everything settled with what we want to do for lineups. I'm guessing that Rory is going to be the overwhelming number one guy in terms of ownership. It's funny, the gap between calculated ownership on Fantasy National and what he's actually being generated at is a massive gap. And this same thing that happened last week. Because I feel like the projection system, like when you're trying to calculate ownership, just can't grasp that someone would be so highly owned, just because it doesn't happen all that often. But we're seeing more and more of that. And if Scotty didn't let people down last week, which he didn't, he came in second, then people are just going to be like, yeah, this is the move.
Yeah.
So I think that Rory could push 40%.
I've got him around 40 right now. And it's not just compensating for last week, but I mean, some of it is for sure. But it just in general, it's the way it sets up again. I also, again, when you've got Thigala at 10.5, Fleetwood at 10.3, it's a discount, but I don't think people feel as comfortable. But they'll still get to, I still see them 20 to 25 range as well, because that's what I was going to say to you earlier. The only difference this week is instead of having everybody afterwards be in like that 15%, 12 to 15 range, 12 to 16, I think we see more guys 15 to 20, 15 to 19, call it, this week, where you do see guys pop up in that range and have a couple more at 20%, and Rory comes down a little bit.
So it'll be Rory number one, and then I'm guessing it's Thigala, Noren, Rye.
Yeah, it's all that range. I think like even Connors could get in the mix there, maybe Fleetwood. It just depends on how people go about it. I do wonder if one of Thigala and Fleetwood gets pushed down more than what current ownership projections will show, just because of the Rory effect up top and then picking one of those guys versus playing multiples.
I would guess Thigala is the one that gets squeezed.
Feels that way.
I mean, when in doubt, it's just like Finau. People will just take Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, and it used to be like Thigala for a little bit was this guy, but then we've talked about this plenty on the show where it did sort of taper off a little bit and people didn't want to go that route anymore. And now you add a 10.5 price tag to it. I think he's intriguing this week. I do like Thigala quite a bit. I think starting lineups with him could be interesting. A Rory Thigala lineup could be interesting. There just depends on how you want to go about it, but I definitely think he's a solid GPP play because he's boom bust.
It's strange because, I mean, it's not even really like he's boom bust. Like, when was the last time he really busted?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I could go pull it up and just have a look. But
yeah, he's had some bad weeks, but generally speaking, he's having a fantastic season. He has a bunch of top tens, and this is the first time he's been the second highest guy on a DraftKings board. He's usually like 9,100, 8,700, so it's a massive price jump. The thing that I thought was really interesting is the same sort of thing that you just laid out of, is there going to be apathy towards Thigala because there's safety in Tommy Fleetwood kind of thing. I think people are just overusing Cam Young.
Possible. I think the former, what you just said, is definitely correct, because I just went and looked at it, and Tommy's just so safe, right? Like
It's like
7th,
Noren.
3rd, 13th, 26th.
Yeah.
Comes second at the event here last year, even though it's at a different course. But people just see that stuff versus Theegala does have a 52nd and a 45th mixed in with his 2nd and his 12th, and his Canadian Open history is not that great. Again, never played this course, so it doesn't really matter. But just to say, I do think you're right on that. I think that ends up being where we do see Theegala push down some, and people either choose between Rory, Fleetwood, or dropping down to that balanced build that probably starts with Noren.
It probably starts with Noren, which leads me to believe that if you have Noren at 99 and Connors at 95, and then Aaron Rai at 89, who are all going to be tremendously popular, that just doesn't leave a lot for Lowry or Cam Young or Sam Burns.
Agree on all of it. I think you got it.
And I like those guys this week.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at with it. So, yeah, and
then going down, like
yeah, Lowry, Young, Burns all still pop up enough here that those guys are fine.
Sure, and even to look at it after, like when you drop into the 8s, I don't see anyone that's like overwhelming chalk. I don't see anyone that's overwhelming chalk outside of the top end. Like everyone's doing something different once you get down low.
This is where I really start to think, like I said, this is where you start to see the 15%ers and down, besides probably Aaron Rai,
Yeah.
right? Aaron Rai is going to be up there. Maybe Tom Kim. Heard a lot of Tom Kim love. I could see him getting steamed up a little, but
Sure,
but still.
people will use Mac Hughes and Adam Hadwin for a cheaper price. Like if
Yeah.
it comes down to, I need to make I'm committed to playing Theegala in those Theegala lineups, then it's not going to be like, I'll save the $200 by dropping from Sahith down to Tommy. No, I'm going to drop from Tom Kim down to Adam Hadwin or Mac Hughes.
for sure.
That's what people would do.
Yep, that's exactly another good way to look at it too, and I don't think enough people do that. So I say you're always checking your lineups, especially if you're hand building or playing only 3 or 5 lineups. That's what you should be looking at and thinking about, because you know that's the move people are going to make. They're not going to move off their top end. They're going to be way more likely to say, well, there is some holes I could poke in Tom Kim. I guess if I'm going to drop down from someone, it's him, and that's what ends up pulling away from what the over projected ownership on that person is.
Yeah. What's really the difference between EVR and Nick Taylor?
Right.
I'll use Nick Taylor.
Akshay's there. I guess people be like, again, this range, I think people are comfortable with. It just depends on how the builds go. But we know that more people are starting with Rory and then going to someone down below that. Is it Rory Noren that we're going to start with? Or is it Rory Rai and skip the 9Ks? What do you think becomes more popular? Because it looks down low like, Svensson,
Gim, Power.
Gim. I see Rio getting a little bit of love.
Yeah, CT Pan maybe, SH Kim.
SH Kim.
But no,
could get a
but
little
this
love.
isn't a lot of love by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
And then Justin Lauer continue. He must be a model darling.
Has to be, because but even now I don't see him nearly as much as what we saw. Like even who's going to get love this week? Mac Meisner, our guy Mark Messier. He came through and got the job done last week. He actually pops down here at 6,500, and I could see him pushing 7 to 10%, which 6K range doesn't. I'm just saying, like for that range, it's a little more than what you're seeing on some of these others.
Yeah, even looking down, like it's telling me that like Kelly Craft is going to be pretty highly owned, but when the results come out, he'll be 3% owned.
Yeah, not going to be it. It's going to be like a guy like Mac. Grayson Sig is a projections darling. SH Kim, who you mentioned.
I've mentioned Bryce Garnett on every single show.
Yep.
So his fantasy national numbers pumped up a little bit. I'd guess he's 4%.
Yeah.
I like him a lot this week, though.
Yeah, those are the guys you got to. Your boy Chen Kim is not getting no love, but
He should be. He's
he could
highlighted
fit.
on my list.
Yeah, he could fit here. So I think there's plenty of options down here. To me, it looks like this, Gim, Svensson, people always like a little Bo Hostler, talked about Rio. It's like that bottom 7K range is getting more love than usual, but so is the upper 7s. I will note they went back to something they haven't done for a little while this week, and there's only 16 guys in the 7K range. We've been seeing the 20 to 24 range even higher with the weeks with no 5K, of course, but it is a smaller range this week. So like Pendrith, Davis Thompson, some of these guys are also getting a little bit of love, and then it just gets really spread out in that 9K range down to 8K.
So for guys that we want to go target this week, how do you think that the lineups end up shaking out? Because the first thing that popped in my mind was like, this is the ultimate 3 studs, 3 scrubs week.
That's what I was going to bring up earlier. So I don't know if as many people lean that way, because once you put Rory, you have the standard like Scotty type situation where it's 7.6K and you just put your 4 7K guys in and see where you land. But to your point, at RBC Canadian Opens in the past, and even at this one, like you mentioned, no real outliers, your top 10 bet that we talked about and sort of applauded a little there to say we like that. That's the setup that I could see, and I don't know how often that fits into roster construction where people would go like Thigala, Fleetwood, Connors, for example, and be able to still stay in the sixes mostly.
So how about this? Well, I'll throw Ryu into this, although do I like Ryu more than I like Matt Kuchar? SH Kim is there as well. Like, there's a lot of guys that you could potentially use. TPC Lee. Want to save him for next year when it's at TPC Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
That's when you want to use KH.
Have you played that course or been there?
I think it just opened.
Oh, okay.
Like, within the past few years.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's, like, outside of Toronto.
Is that the one worth going to?
No.
No.
I mean, I actually have no idea. Jeff said he's been on the grounds, but he hasn't played the course. I think it's, like, TPC Toronto at Osprey Ridge.
Yeah.
But it's, like, a good hour outside of town. Like, it's nowhere near Toronto.
You must get the running joke too, right, for this week? Like the classic, I got to make fun of it again because it is hilarious. Like, so many people reach out to me like, hey, man, you're open this week. You going to be there? And I'm like, oh, where do you live? And they say, oh, I'm in Boston. I'm like, okay, if there was an event in Kentucky this week, would you be heading over to it? Like, well, no. All right, well, it's the same thing. Like, I don't live anywhere near this event, so I won't be at this one, no.
Yes, I've been asked a few times if I'm making the trek down to Hamilton. It's like, well, I got to take a 3-hour flight to get there, and then I need to drive for an hour and a half from the airport in order to get to the course. So I'm probably not going to go for a day.
Which it's not that much harder, honestly, to go to, like, an event we actually, or, I know it's a Canadian
It
Open,
would
but I'm
be
saying,
easier for me to go to TPC Boston. It would take me shorter.
right, or even, worth it more maybe to go to, like, a big event like the Players or something in Florida or all that. Like, it's just 1-2 and you're there or whatever you can get, maybe even a direct flight. So,
I mean, an extra hour and a half, I can go to the Open Championship.
yeah, there you go.
Like, we're in a pretty isolated place here, away from a lot of things.
Yeah,
but
that's
even when I
the-
lived in Toronto, I didn't go down to fucking Hamilton ever.
That's what I mean. That's what's funny about it. It's not like we were going to attend either way. But yeah, I got you. We're excited for the President's Cup, obviously. So
Yeah.
that's going to be the one to be at if anyone's heading out.
Rory lineup. So here's what I've constructed. Rory, Noren, Rye.
Okay, let me see here.
12-1, 9-9, 8-9. I think that's going to be a pretty logical start for a lot of people. And then what you do with it after that, because I think it leaves you $6,200 or something, is very doable. Like, I have Bryce Garnett, Ben Martin, 2 guys, and then I have Ryu Hisatune for the final $7,000 that I threw in there. But you could go even lower than that. What's Marc Messier?
65. Is
he's
there
six-
someone in the fives, though, that's popping? Like
Yeah,
5,600?
I got a bunch of guys in the fives who work out for me. Kelly Craft at 5,700, Lonto at 54.
Who do you think people are playing? Because I think
Probably Craft.
How much is he?
Smelly Kelly? He's 57. I also have Lipsky, Lonto, and Matt Anderson at $5,400 that I have highlighted.
So I think we're going to see like Rory and Messier in a lineup.
Do you think he's going to be that popular?
He's going to make it work.
All right, so let's go Ben Martin to Mach.
So let's try that. So if you go Rory, Rye, Noren, Mac, it leaves you 6,300.
You can go Garnett, Lauer, Garnett, Ben Silverman. I like Ben Silverman this week.
I liked him last week. Did you see what he did? By the way, he was part of those.
He got
lineups.
there for you. He got
I
you like T20
needed
or
him. It
whatever.
was the only chance to get a 6-6, and he's the last guy, and he misses the green. And I'm like, well, that's really, really sucks. Like, this could have been awesome. And then he chips in off the green to make the cut. 3 under, bogey free on Saturday, and shot like a 1 under on Sunday or something, or even when it was pretty tough. So I don't mind Ben Silverman either. What's his price?
65. He fits everything.
So if you go with your Bryce Garnett at 61, we land on him. So yeah, you're right. That's the one. All right, so we'll start with that. And then
I mean, it's not like this is going to be a popular lineup.
no, I guess this is the take though, is when I was first thinking of like a 3 studs, 3 scrubs lineup, I wasn't I was thinking more of a balanced version of like the non-Rory version to see what that would look like. This actually does turn out to kind of be what you were talking, like it's Rory, Noren, and Rye. 8,900 Rye, so you call them what it is, but the other guys are all in the 6K range. You have no 7s, no 10s, anything like that in there.
So you thought that it would be more of a, let's see here, Fleetwood, Noren, Connors, Rye kind of thing. You have 57, you go Kelly Craft and someone.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's more of like a Fleetwood, Noren, Rye, Davis Thompson, and then you still have Mac in there. That's why I think Mac gets boosted, because he makes it work, and then you land on like Silverman again, or Chan Kim, Michael Kim, Grayson Sig. I think that's a popular lineup right there.
So Grayson Sig And we have 7,800, for Davis Thompson. I like Daniel Berger more than Davis Thompson for $100 less for what it's worth. I like Daniel Berger a lot this week.
Good little leverage play right there, too, because it doesn't look like Davis Thompson is going to be low owned. It looks like he's going to be 15 plus.
Had some pretty good results. He's playing better than I just, in my mind, thought he was.
Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's why people, I mean, it makes sense. On paper, it makes sense. It's what, like you said, when you get to the guys around him, I know there's some Matt Wallace love out there. There's some Ben Griffin bounce back. There's some Taylor Pendrith love out there. Hubbard's there, and people always like him. Bhatia just above. So that's why it's going to be spread out a little bit, but I can see why Davis Thompson is getting ownership on paper.
So what I would do in this lineup, I mean, at what point does McClure Messenger get to
McClure Messenger.
where he's just unplayable? Like, I don't want to play a 10% Mark Messier. Come on.
That's the thing. I know he makes everything work, but he's also not 5,500. He's 6,500. And when you look at the names around him, like you said, there's just nobody's really getting owned, but S.H. Kim, Matt Kuchar, Kevin Tway, Chan Kim, Bramlett, Novak, Silverman. There's a lot of guys around him that are the same situation that, just because this guy popped last week and had some other good results, I do still think that you can just move off it and go somewhere else.
So we can take him down to Garnett. Let's do that. And then 4chan is sitting right there, Chan Kim. Now we have $500 left to get back up to Bhatia, EVR, or Nick Taylor if we wanted to. See, I like this lineup better. Fleetwood, Noren, Rye, Garnett, Kim, Bhatia. And for me, I would actually take Fleetwood to Lowry in this lineup.
Let's take Fleetwood to Lowry.
Now we have an extra $300. And if you did want to skimp on Bhatia, who could we go down to here? Let's say Seamus Power. You could get Seamus Power out of there. Then you could take Aaron Rye to Cam Young.
Let's do that. So Power, Rye goes to Cam Young.
Yeah, I think I'm more comfortable with this version of that first lineup that we built, just because it's not that I dislike Tommy. It's just I like Lowry better.
Who was the sixth man? I got Lowry, Cam Young, Noren, Seamus Power,
Chan Kim and Garnett.
Garnett, and how much is Chan Kim?
66. You can
And
get
then-
him up to...
And you just left the $300, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
But you can do whatever here. You can move Chan Kim to Matt Kuchar. I saw that Eric Cole actually did when Lee tweeted that out. He popped. I'm not using Eric Cole, but
yeah.
that's me.
Yeah, $6,800.
S.H. Kim is there, who does seem to be getting a little bit of love. Tway, your guy, playing some good golf.
I think it's the week, man. I like him.
His dad won at this course in 2003.
Yeah, my dad's guy, too. So.
He's your dad's guy, so everything's lining up for Kevin
He watches
Tway.
the show, and by the way, he hit me up last week. He was like, by the way, I've never talked about that guy in a long time. And he's like, that was kind of a last year one-time deal. He's like, but you can keep using it. I'm like, sure, it's dad's guy. Because, Kevin Tway, Bob Tway, it's, him and his dad. So I do think it's funny. But Kevin Tway, I think, is in play. Kevin Tway is in play. 7,100. 6,700.
67?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we could just go to him. I mean, he had a bad final round last week, but other than that, he had 3 rounds in the 60s beforehand. He had a 4-over final round and still finished T24. Mm-hmm. So he's putting. You got to do that here. Got to putt.
Yeah, he can bomb it out there, too.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about bombing it out there. I'm far more concerned about driving accuracy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be.
But he can dial it back and probably gain a bunch of accuracy.
That was one of the things that was brought up about 2019 is like, Rory really bombs it out there, but he also was one of the most accurate.
Sixth in accuracy.
Right.
Yeah, when Rory leads the field in driving distance, if anyone leads the field in driving distance, and they're also 6th in accuracy for the week, they're going to have a good week.
It's going to be a good week, yeah. Who do you, why don't you pull that on Fantasy National and see?
What, accuracy and distance?
Some of those guys, or maybe I think I saw.
I actually have that model built already.
If you have that and then throw some names out there, I can kind of build that type of build and just get an idea for a skill set lineup.
Let's see. It's not Rory. I mean, I'm looking at past 12 rounds. Let's go past 36 to give ourselves a little bit of a sample
that,
here. Yeah. Who is the best at doing that? I mean, Lowry's distance isn't all that high, but he's very high up in accuracy. Mav McNeely, weirdly enough. Sam Burns. Wow. Like, there's no one guy that's kind of good in both. Like, even to look at it, Rory's number 1 in driving distance, but 85th in fairways. Whereas Fleetwood is 10th in fairways. Noren is 23rd in fairways. Lowry is 14th in fairways, but they're 90, 91 in this field. 120 for Noren in terms of distance.
Yeah, I think it's also, too, like, if you just turned it to, like, another thing you can do in Fantasy National, just go fairways, get your ball striking in there, and then add your around the green and see if you can get that little trio. Because just playing out of the fairway is just going to be massive. And then, having a chance to get on these greens, and if you're off them, just see what that looks like. Yes, it's going to come down to putting anyway, but you're not going to be in good shape to do that if you don't have the other first parts under wraps.
So the only really high-end guys who do these kind of well, so I mentioned Sam Burns, he's one of them. Keith Mitchell is one of them, and Kevin Yu, who can't make a putt to save his life, but he's becoming the new Luke List for stat models.
Yeah.
Like he should be good every week. It's just he's not good every week.
Fair price, I think, at $7,500.
Yeah, I mean,
it's about right.
He's in my pool, but
Yeah.
Rafael Campos is another one who's like decent. Enrico Hui.
Yeah, he always, I don't know, maybe he's the model guy. He just keeps showing up. I hear about him every week.
He's 54. I think you hear about him because he's $5,400, and I bring him up.
Maybe that's why. I was like, I've never used him, and it hasn't helped me or hurt me yet, but I'm sure he's had some good weeks in there. I
used him at Valero, and he was T14.
There you go. So that worked.
It worked. I had a very good week that week because Bhatia ended up winning.
Yes.
Bhatia should be up higher on this list. Just he's had a really bad run of accuracy as of late, but that's kind of his bread and butter. That's why I bet him. Just it seemed like he got it back last week at Colonial. If he can just kind of keep that going through, and since he had that rib injury, all he's done is played majors and signature events. Like he's back to kind of his level here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know how his ownership will go at 8,100, but currently seeing something in the line of like 12 to 16, like a range. He's going to get love, but not that much. So
I like him a lot. So I like this lineup here. The Lowry, Noren, Cam Young start. And I think you can kind of piecemeal a lot of those guys together. Like that 3v3 could easily be Theegala, Rye, Adam Scott for basically the same price.
Yeah, that's right. And it's going to be like in that range of kind of what we talked about when you talk about the pocket that people are landing in. It's going to be like their 6K guy, whether it's for them, it's Mac or Sig or Garnett or whoever they choose, like you mentioned, or it's Rio or guys like that at 7K. Like they can easily fit that build in. Like with just Lowry, Noren, and Young, the chalk version of it, if you want me just to pull it up, is like if you go Meisner and then you go Rio, you would land on 6.6 is Sig, I think, is the most popular that I have on my list right now. And that kind of becomes the chalkier version of it. But you're not playing the most popular guys at the top because, like we said, if Lowry gets squeezed a little, Cam Young maybe gets squeezed a little, and then you still have the popular Noren, but Noren's as your second guy in a balanced build. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where you see three guys up there, a couple others that could come through, and then one that just has to come through for you. That's the type of build that I would see sort of building this one out.
Let's go to $5,400. Who down here? I said Lonto. Lonto's a guy. Rico Hui. Lipsky.
You bet him if you bet him at 300 to 1. Again, we don't need the bet. That's we know it. You and I talked about this last week. I think that's another one for people to follow and realize the bet's awesome. Like it's to have it just in case. It's the each way. It's all these factors, and each way on that will pay more than some of these guys at the top outrights that people are betting, like loser Tommy Fleetwood. People will say, why would you bet him at this number when you can get an each way on a guy like that? But if you're willing to put him in and hope for the each way, you may as well put him in DFS lineups at 5.4K. So what do you got?
So Rory, Theegala, Noren.
So taking out Cam Young and Lowry for Theegala and Noren. Or sorry, I already had Noren, but for Rory and
Theegala. So you get 1-2 on the board. Then you go Kraft, Garnett, Lipsky. You still have $300 left to upgrade if you really wanted to.
So Kraft, Garnett. And people are begging for the $100 button to get their Garnett up to Mac.
Maybe. I like Garnett better, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kraft just continues to rate out really well. I mean, I assume that doesn't go well for me. Bud Cauley, Nate Lashley, two other ones that do pretty well. Cam Champ and Ben Martin. Ben Martin's actually someone I am playing at 6,000. That you could take Kraft up to Ben Martin, no problem in that lineup, which I think I would rather do.
Actually, yeah, that's probably good for what you like, especially. Yeah. It's the three guys up top. Very interesting to have Noren as your third guy in. That's not going to be a popular build. There's no chance. And then most people are picking Theegala or Rory versus Rory and Theegala combos. So I definitely think that's interesting. And then being just willing to play these three scrubs. Like, what's the difference between earlier when we had Mac 6.5, 6.1, 6.2, and now you've got 6.1, 6.0, and Lipsky at 5.4 that could easily be like a $6,500 guy, and no one would have really batted an eye. They would be like, man, wow, Lipsky should be 5,400.
He's so overpriced.
Yeah,
So,
like that just wouldn't be a comment.
Ben Martin, Bryce Garnett, David Lipsky. Do you see any tangible difference between those three guys in filling out your team with Grayson Sigg, Kevin Tway, and Mac Messier?
No, I mean the projections do, but
I'm sure,
I
but like
don't.
just like to see it, like those guys are all. They could miss the cut. They could be fine.
They can all pop at any given time, and it could be their week, and this is part of the game. And that's why, you want to be, as we always say, be comfortable being uncomfortable. This is the way to do it. But you have three dudes that could definitely be battling for the win on Sunday.
Yes.
Right? Rory, Thigala, Noren.
I thought you meant Rory, Thigala, Garnett.
Yeah, you love Garnett. I'm just saying, I do think these types of builds are going to be in play this week more than usual.
And I like these types of builds this week. Now watch it be... The optimal will be Sam Burns, Keith Mitchell, Tom Kim, Hadwin, Bhatia, and Hubbard.
It's every week we could have this conversation, so do others out there, but like I do feel like there's some weeks feel more like it's going to be an optimal week, and others feel like it's just going to be a high leverage week where you just know. And usually it's on lazy weeks. I don't see this as a lazy week. I think people are pretty dialed in.
I think it seems that way because there's a lot of Canadian golf content creators.
Right, but I do think that also makes it so that more people are taking it in, right? So that would shy away from, people just taking in one show or this, that, and the other on some of these other swing season weeks or weeks after a major, things like that. That might be the one benefit, right? Like the Canadian Open squeezed in between, but it was like a little bit of a break. Next week's Memorial and then the U.S. Open, but I think people are still interested. So I do think ownership is getting spread out for that reason. I do think some of the thought processes is spread out, but do you think that it's going to be a Rory week, or do you think it's going to end up being like the other guys around him? Like, I think Rory's just going to be in the mix no matter what.
I think he's going to be in the mix no matter what, but my betting card would reflect that I don't think that Rory wins. Yeah. And it's funny because if that's the case, as we kind of spelled it out, that if Rory's in the mix and doesn't win, it's probably going to be one of these like five other guys that I think you'd be fine fading Rory if that's the outcome.
Which is where I wanted to get to. So awesome. The chemistry's working good here. That's what
unlike last week where it was Scheffler, and Morikawa kind of got there towards the end, but Scheffler massively outscored him. Then the other guys were just not in play.
And that's the results of it. What you're talking about right now is the process of it going in, which I like. And that's why I said you sort of got right to the path I was leading down, which is perfect. Where last week, I think the bigger takeaway was it wasn't just Scotty. I kept saying this. We talked about it. It's like, look who's behind him. It's not a murderer's row of closers. And I'm not saying this is, but if Rory's not Scotty and the ownership is still going to be similar, not 48, but probably 38 to 42, let's just call it and put a number on it, we do see where if it's not Rory, it is Thigala, Fleetwood, Lowry, Noren, Cam Young, some of these guys finding their first win or these guys getting another win or whatever it might be, versus last week was quite different where it was like, damn, this 9K, 10K range kind of sucks. Besides maybe Morikawa, which ended up being correct because he was kind of having form coming in. I think that's the case this week. So if you are fading Rory, it's awesome. You can load up on three of those guys. You can pick two of them. You can start with one and get a more balanced build. Like there's a lot of different ways where you can double down because the Rory lineups require you to have somebody down low.
Additionally, while these guys are not closers, they're not blow-up guys at the same time. They're all guys. That's why I played that top 10 parlay. Because one of them comes third, one of them comes fourth. And if Fleetwood and Lowry come second and fourth, and Rory comes third, like Rory is unusable at that point if you're just looking at it from results. Just because he cost you, I guess it depends on who wins. But if you can find if the winner is going to be someone from this 8K range, which is being wildly overlooked, let's say it's Nick Taylor, who no one wants a part of this week.
Yeah, the 8K range going really overlooked actually. When you do look back at it now, besides maybe Ryan Kim gets a little, it's do they even get enough? Like
Rye will.
Think of
because Ryan and Noren are going to be wildly popular.
So PGA Championship, Fleetwood was 8,700, which is right in between Ryan and Tom Kim. We knew he was a great play and a popular play and everything like going in, like he looked awesome. I think he got to like 12.5%. And it was due to roster construction. I'm not saying that's the full case here this week, but I think Rye gets more in check than what you would think. Like, I don't think Rye gets to 25 or 30%. Maybe in the high stakes stuff, yes, I'm talking more in the lottery. He could stay in check. But Tom Kim should stay in check to your original point earlier. Yes. Don't need to rehash that. Mitchell should stay in check because of that. I don't ever see where Hadwin and Hughes, EVR, guys like that get blown up. And Bhatia probably gets kept in check as well. So really the 8K range is overlooked besides Rye.
So what if we were to build like an ultimate balance build here? Because you can do that pretty easily. Rye, Tom Kim, Taylor, Bhatia.
Well, then my question would be, let's just stack one of those guys above. Is it Norin?
Yeah, Norin fits this perfectly. Just based on the player that he is. Or Connor's actually kind of fits
It's funny that it's Norin Mac, and it just projects off the page. It can be anyone you want. I'm just saying that's the answer. Like that is
you play your 5 balance and you play your 1 scrub. Yeah, Mark Messier at $6,500.
But this is a note to make.
Do you think that he's going to have problems being on the ESPN hockey playoff panel and coming to play in this event?
I saw. Did you say something about that the other day? Like him being on the thing? I think we talked about this last week.
Maybe.
It was like him and Gretzky.
Yeah.
And other guy. Yeah. That's right. So, and then funny, he goes out and what was it, a T9 or something? Our guy Mac here. So I just think that shows the completely different way, because earlier it was Rory, Norin, Mac, and a bunch of scrubs and mid-tier range, versus this gets you into Rye, Kim, Taylor, Bhatia, right? Even if you say it's Norin, Mac, Rye that were in those Rory lineups, you could not get Tom, Kim, Nick, Taylor, Bhatia into the mix. So it's a completely different way to use them. Not who you play, it's how you use them. This is where I'd be comfortable, and where people get it confused. They say, oh, you played a 10% Mac, and then they say, oh, you played him to the field? You didn't even get leverage on him? Well, no. Most of the 10% Mac lineups are in with one of Rory, Thigala, Fleetwood, Lowry. Probably 75% of them. So I'm way overweight Mac lineups that don't have one of those guys in them. So that's, again, it's a more advanced technique just talking about it, but just to say it, that's what I'm trying to show here. Mac is not in very many lineups with any 8K guys outside of Rye. He's definitely not in a lot of lineups with Rye, Kim, Taylor, Bhatia for 4 8K guys, and that's the difference. We have to check it out from there.
Now, in fairness, I don't like this lineup at all.
Okay. That's fair too, but it projects very close to the original Rory build.
Yeah, I because of the balance, I'm sure it would. I feel like you're, and I probably shouldn't say that I feel like you're leaving a lot of win equity on the table, considering Nick Taylor's here who wins, Tom Kim has 3 wins, Bhatia has 2 wins. Like,
Scottish Open winner Aaron Rye.
There you go. From
Handsy, round the greens. Just will he make that 4-footer? Probably not.
No is the answer.
Probably not to that one. Yes.
Realistically, we should just throw Shane Lowry into this lineup instead of Norin.
Yeah.
Because you want a guy with hands who can't putt, there's your guy.
Well, also, that gets us away from Mac. It makes me like this probably better, is if you go Lowry.
You go Lowry Garnett.
Yeah.
Or 6,300. Who's 6,300?
No, we liked Garnett.
I like Vic Perez. He's at 63. We haven't thrown him in yet.
Where's this version with Garnett? Okay, so I'm going to save this one, but also you can do Fleetwood Garnett.
Yeah, Fleetwood Garnett works too. I'll go Lowry Perez for this one.
Lowry Perez. Vic.
Perez, a former runner-up at Wentworth. And hits a lot of greens in regulation.
Yeah, that's not bad. These are only like 10 to 15 points off the Rory projection. It's because Rory's not in it. But your Rory big bonus projection obviously takes a bit of a hit when you add in all these 6K guys with him to make it work.
Sure, but in terms of the projection, I would assume that the win equity that Rory presents at 4-1, you get sort of a bonus for that in the projections, right?
It's all, yeah.
It's all baked in.
You'll be baking in, double counting, whatever you want to call it. But my point is, too, and that's one of the biggest takeaways, is when you're fading a Rory win equity like that or a Scotty win equity, you're not going to make up the win equity. They own in some cases it's like 20 to 30% based on their odds. But you can get some in there from guys that actually win tournaments, like you mentioned, which is what this has. Bhatia, Taylor, Kim, these like big time winners over the last couple of years. Lowry, Perez, you're mentioning some of these guys. But my point would be you're really baking in made cut equity. And what you're hoping is not only does Rory not win, but the guys that are coming along in the Rory lineups miss the cut because you ventured out a little bit too extreme or a little bit too far. And this has pretty good made cut equity if you look at it from that perspective.
So to look at the sim odds on Fantasy National, ran this 1,000 times.
Let's
you can
do
see
it.
all the results. Rory comes in at number 1, but he is a terrible value for his betting odds.
So let's do the other guys and try and build one.
So
See what it looks
just
like.
to try to give you who the relative values are here, just to kind of give it away a little bit, you can find this all in the top bar, just like that over-under tool, fantasynational.com/Mayo. And then it just gets you the leaderboard app too, which is really what you just want, along with all the tools. But Rory, the sim odds give him a 10-1 chance, which is when I first came out, like I did not think that he was going to be 3.5-1 to win this tournament. That seemed outrageous to me. And he might win. Like, he might clean it up, but I don't think he has a 33% chance of winning.
Because, 5 years ago, he won by a bunch of strokes.
Sure. All on the final day, too, by the way. There were 5 guys within a shot. Rory, Cooch, Lowry, Snedeker, and Webb Simpson were all within 1 shot of each other going into Sunday.
I have a
and
bad
Rory
memory.
went nuclear.
Yeah, I have a bad memory for this stuff, but I think it was the same year he won the API running away with 5 strokes gain putting.
I can tell
and
you
then
that
I
was-
think
I-
at RBC he won like 9 strokes gain putting or something stupid. Like just
It wasn't the same year because I watched that in Mexico in 2016. I want to say it's the 2016 Arnold Palmer Invitational. And I would be incorrect. It was the 2018.
API.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. My son was born in 2019. Yeah. Yes, that was the final round for him. It was the year before at API.
Oh,
when he
you know what
went
it was?
crazy.
He won the Players.
Oh, that fun year where everyone was like minus 20 and Vegas made that huge putt from across the green.
Jim Furyk was the gold man because he had the bald head, and we thought Jim Furyk was winning it, and then turned out Rory just stole it from him. That's what it was. And you're right, API was the year before, but gained just a million strokes putting. If you look, it's his best putting maybe ever at that one. And then at the Canadian Open, I think it's his second best to that one over all these years. So yeah, you know what it is with Rory. If he starts making the putting, no, the Wells Fargo in 2021. I mean, there's a lot of good spots, but yeah.
Yeah, when he gets hot with the putter, he's untouchable.
It's game over. Yeah.
Especially when he's driving it as well as he did. And we just pointed to the driving numbers from that year, too. Like, how was anyone going to beat him?
Yeah.
But now you think about it, like, well, if Rory just hits it to 80 yards every time, he's probably going to miss the green every time because he can't make those shots.
Yeah, that's the tricky, and that's where the fade comes in. So if you don't go Rory in those simulations,
So
who are some of the next guys up?
The best ranked guy, odds versus sim, is actually Thigala. His odds are 18 to 1, 22 to 1, and his sim odds are 17 to 1.
Okay.
And he's number 2. So let's start a lineup with Thigala here.
Who are some of the values that are popping that would
Berger.
be? Berger. You like him too? And he's
Berger has the 4th best sim odds at 40 to 1.
also fits our normal strategy of remember guys that are going to be more expensive next time around. He's starting to come back around.
He
and if
is.
that's the case, you know Berger's going to keep going up and up. So
And the stats are coming around for him as well,
Yeah.
which is nice to see. Ben Griffin, who just, I don't know why the Fantasy National Simulator is in love with Ben Griffin, but it is.
and I will say on
Guy
him, I do
fucks
have
me every single week.
Well, the last 2 weeks, just so you know, and I had Alex Blickel on Monday with me doing the first look, and he was going into it as well and talking about it. Like it was I think it was like a 72, 71, a 70, and a 7. He did
right on
nothing
the
wrong
number.
to miss the cut. Like he did, but he didn't. And before that, it was a bunch of top 20s. So now put him in this field. I think he's fine. So I'll plug him in just to see what we get. I mean, he's definitely capable, and he's the bounce back candidate there.
Yeah, Griffin Pendrith.
Love that. Throw him in.
So we're going to have a lot of money on the table here. Griffin, Pendrith,
Is there any?
Bhatia.
Okay, Bhatia rounds it out with
So then we need one more guy.
Tom Kim, Adam Hadwin. Any of them in there?
Let's see here. No?
Damn. Tom Kim fits it, by the way, just of note. If you want to play for a guy that, is popular, but the rest of our lineup's not popular.
Yeah, he's not up here at all.
Okay.
Like you're seeing some guys from like the very bottom in terms of like relative to their odds, like Carson Young and Justin Lauer, those type of guys. Adam Scott actually rates out okay. Corey Connors, Mav McNeely. But versus the odds in the range that we're at right now, Hubbard, Rye, Cole, Rio, Nick Taylor.
Hubbard, Rye, Cole.
Can we get to Keith Mitchell? Or do we not have enough money?
We're $100 shy. So if you go Nick Taylor over Bhatia, you could get Keith Mitchell.
All right, let's do that. There's a lineup no one has.
So I'll read it off. It is pretty decent still, but it's Thigala. Then it goes to Mitchell, Taylor. So it's a 10K, 2 8Ks range, guys. And then it's Berger, Taylor Pendrith, Ben Griffin.
You're not going to see many lineups that look like this.
No, the 10 8-8-7s where you don't have Rory, don't have any 6K guys. Like these are interesting builds, though.
You have probably the lowest owned of the 10K guys, of like even probably of the top 10 guys on the board. Then you skip the entire chalk range where everyone is trying to jam in 2 or 3, and you go directly to that 8K range we say are being overlooked, and we're using 2 guys that no one wants to play anyway. And then 3 7K guys?
And none of them are really the chalk guys.
Yeah.
Like, we
Well,
don't
there's
have
no real chalk guys
Like we
in
don't
the
have the
sevens.
Davis Thompson. We don't have the Aaron Rye. We went to Mitchell instead of Fleetwood or Rory or Lowry. We went to Thigala, like you said. And Berger fits the Thompson range. Ben Griffin fits that area. So, yeah, I will say Thigala feels like an honorary Canadian. Like I can just see him draped up in the flag, celebrating with his dad out there, getting the W. He's just always so happy. I think he could be the guy, man, this week. He looks good.
Listen, if none of my guys end up winning, I'd be happier with Thigala winning than Rory.
Yeah.
Just to watch it.
I like that angle.
Or Matt Anderson.
What? Sell me on that one. I missed it.
Oh, he's number one in the Canadian/Latino tour right now.
Okay.
He won 4 weeks ago. He was T3 last week. He's played 6 times. He has a third, and first. So I was on Fairway Rolling yesterday, and Nate Hubbard, Mark Hubbard's brother, is obviously on the show. And I asked him, I was like, sometimes when you see guys play on the Canadian tour, the Latino American tour, like this is it for them. Like they're playing well. It's the best they're ever going to play. This is the peak of their career. Or you get guys like his brother, Mark Hubbard, who grinded up from that tour. Tony Finau, Keith Mitchell, Joel Damon. Maybe he's just one of those guys. Like he's pumping these guys right now. Why not? It's not like the other Canadians are really all that good. Like they're good, but they're not Rory.
Let me see this.
In any single event, you could get beat.
He's 5,400.
He is. He's the same price as Lipsky. He's the same price as Lonto Griffin. He'll make the player pool.
So now I need to think of a lineup here for you, just real quick. I need to build an Anderson-Lipsky lineup.
Anderson, Lipsky.
And now we go, who were your bets? Cam Young. You pumped up
Lowry.
Or you pumped up Cam Young, but you did bet Lowry. And we still have 9.7. You kind of seem to like Burns, but
I bet Aaron
Burns Noren closes it.
I bet Aaron Rye. Man. You can go Rye Fleetwood.
Let's do that. I like that better.
Fleetwood, Cam Young, Lowry, Rye, Lipsky, and Matt Anderson.
Yep, these are the ones, man. I love that shit. That's perfect. That's your guys with your risk tolerance, which is whatever you're playing within your means. Like this is what you got to do.
It's $5.
This is though what we talked about earlier. So this has a 10, 10, 9, 8, and it's a high 8 in Rye, and you just need Lipsky and Anderson to do anything. And people are thinking, why the hell would you ever play Anderson? But I get it. I'm just saying.
But you could easily turn Matt Anderson into Lonto for exactly the same price. And Lonto's ball striking has been amazing. You just can't putt.
Play your guy.
I'm going to play both of them. That's the answer.
If you go Lonto, you can now take Aaron Rye up to...
It's the same amount of money.
Adam Scott. It's not really.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like Rye more than Scott. Scott's someone we didn't even mention.
I like Scott this week.
He's played in every major since 2001. He's not in the U.S. Open yet.
That's what he's grinding for.
I know.
And again, same as always that I always say, 14th, 22nd, 30th, 29th, 12th last week. This is not a strong field. This is not a hard course.
Fairways and putting, too, is kind of his jam at this point.
He's just a floor guy, but he's 9,000. And he can outscore his position. He can make some other stuff happen, too. So.
Here's the thing. He can outscore Aaron Rye pretty easily.
Very easily. That's what I don't get that, but I know that people are going to say like Rye's Canadian Open history. They'll look at like the 3rd and the 13th, but it's like 32nd, 39th, 23rd in a team event and a miscut versus a 12th, a 29th, a 30th, a 22nd, a 14th and a miscut. Like what is the difference between these two guys?
It's the putting.
Sure.
Like you just think about straight up tee to green. Like tee to green the past 3 weeks, 8, 6, 8 tee to green for Rye, which is just pretty impressive numbers. Like those are elite numbers.
Yeah.
That's why people are gravitating towards him. It's just he doesn't ever putt.
He's got to make those 4-footers, man.
He can't.
I know because I
Until
played
he
him
does.
forever. I love Aaron Rye. The Scottish Open is a long time ago now, and a lot of like originally it's like at least you could fall back and say like that's a big boy field that he won. You'd expect to see more. The one thing I do like about him is when he makes a cut, he typically has a good weekend. You know what I mean? It's not just like even if he's in on the cut, whatever, but when he makes a cut for you, he typically does continue to grind over the weekend and do his thing. So, yeah, and we've seen it in these results. He's got a 4th, a 7th, the 13th, and the 3rd at this event. I can see why people can make the case, but like you said, with Scott right there, Mitchell right below him, there's other guys.
For sure. It's just I think that Rye is going to be the one that people gravitate towards. And he had that runner-up at Wentworth last year, so I like that.
Yep, they will definitely go to him. I'll have some of them. Like, just how you play. We looked at other ways. That lineup we just had up was a prime way to build. We have 4 guys that can finish in the top 10. One of them can win. And then you like Lipsky enough to bet him for an each way, which is going to be 8 to 12 places, depending what you got.
Well, if I get that wrong, blame Jeff Ulrich.
Sure, he's heavy on him. That's good. But I do think that's kind of the angle, though, where it's like, okay, your guy or someone picks Lonto or something else there. As long as they do anything, the lineup seems pretty live.
So guys that I am playing that we didn't really make much of just because they didn't fit into some of the chalkier lineups that we were trying to build, but I'll have a sprinkling of these guys, probably like 20% throughout my lineups. Sam Burns is one of them. Tom Kim is one of them. Mm-hmm. Just based off talent, and no one's using them. Might as well go for it. This is a good Tom Kim course, if there ever was one.
Yeah. I think that's the reason he's getting some love, but like you said, I think it's going to be held quite in check. So we'll have to see. Maybe in the high stakes stuff, he pops up.
I doubt it.
But it's probably Rye, to be honest, instead that people would do if there's an 8K guy that really pops up. Who's the guy in the 7s? Is it going to be Davis Thompson?
I hope so, because I'm going to play Burger for $100 less.
I feel like it's going to be Davis Thompson that becomes the Eckroat of last week. Remember, Eckroat just popped heavy and all of a sudden got super steamed?
Well, it all depends on is Davis Thompson compatible with Rory lineups? Because that's what it was with Eckroat last week. He was so compatible with Scotty lineups that, of course, he gets jammed in.
That's right.
So in the 7s, I'm only using 4 guys. I got Berger, Kevin Yu at 75, Svensson at 73, whose ball striking numbers are excellent, by the way,
I think...
and Seamus Power at 72.
Yeah. I think Davis Thompson's very easy to put into those lineups. It's just you might not get Norin and Rye. You're probably picking one of.
Yeah, and people will pick Norin, as they probably should. He's better odds. He's a better player.
So Rory, Norin, Davis Thompson.
Rory, Norin, well, this also, if this is the build that people want to go with, it helps you with the bottom end because then you go to Mac Messier, and now you're back up to 68.
I think it's Mac, Rio, Sig is the lineup, and it projects off the page. It's the highest projection we put on the paper today.
Well, then I should probably play it, huh?
No, I'm just saying it's going to be the highest owned too. It's just how the build fits. Mm-hmm. And then if you didn't like, I think what happens there, the 2v2, I think people swap is actually Norin and Sig because they don't feel as comfortable with it. So then they go to Rye, and that leaves them a boost of up to 7.7K, which is probably Pendrith. Even though I know Burger's there and what we like, I'm saying, don't you think people just go to Pendrith at that point?
It does seem like Seamus Power is building up a little bit of love. So you could do Kevin Yu, or actually Doug Gim. Doug Gim, someone's going to be relatively popular just because people use Doug Gim every week.
He's 74, so he would fit it.
You go like Seamus Power, Doug Gim, and leave $100 on the table.
Is there anybody else? I'm just trying to see.
You
know what else it could be? Rio can be Svensson in that build now.
Yeah, or Power can be Svensson. You go Svensson, Gim with Thompson, Mac Messner, and then Ryan Rory.
This really looks like the lineup people go to. Rory, Rye, and then you get Thompson, Gim, Svensson, land on Mac, our guy, and there you go. That's how it rounds out. So,
do you like this lineup?
I'm going to look at this, but I'm really looking at this based on, for like the Fantasy Golf World Championship, like what are the optimals that people are looking at? And this would be one that would fall within that for sure.
And I'll make my quick adjustments to it. Oh, look, I've created $300 out of thin air, which means I can get to Bhatia instead of Davis Thompson. There we go. There's
you changed Thompson and you changed
I bring
Meisner to Garnett and Bhatia.
Nope, I didn't. I changed Gim into Ryan Fox, another winner at Wentworth last year, by the way. And if this was just a Thursday, Friday lineup, would be unbeatable. But unfortunately, sometimes he has to play the weekend, which has not gone well for him. Yep. I turned Mac into Victor Perez at 63. That opened up $300 ago from Thompson to Akshay.
Perez is 63. And there you go. And this projects pretty nice. So, and it's different for sure. You start with the same Rory Rye type combination, even with a Svensson in there. But when you go Fox, Perez, and Bhatia, just way different than what we were looking at. And this will come in much lower owned overall anyway. So,
looks like we have to do a head-to-head draft.
So I won.
You won
last week.
I had a bad team last week.
It was actually not that bad.
I don't even remember who I took. I just remember someone missed the cut for me, and it was just like, oh, come on.
Did you have Homa last week?
No.
Okay.
I didn't play any Homa last week, which was top-notch.
All right. I'm going to go with... Just take Rory. I forgot I only get one. I'll just take Rory off the top.
You'll take Rory off the top?
Yeah.
I'll go Lowry, Cam Young.
Okay. I'm almost there. I'll have my picks pretty quick here. I just got to see something. All right. Let me see here. You're going Lowry, Cam Young?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go... Adam Scott.
Okay.
And then I think I'm going to go, Taylor Pendrith.
I'll go Bhatia Norin.
Okay, and I will go Rio and Hogard.
Oh, we didn't even mention old Nikolai.
I'm just trying to get a little leverage into this thing here in the middle, so I'll go with him.
Do you need to have that much leverage in a head-to-head versus me, knowing that I'm just going to pick the worst team possible?
I don't know. I think, to be honest, I haven't looked into it enough because it's obviously for pride and for head-to-head between you and I. It's fun, but I haven't dug in. But I think I have done better the weeks I just play the best plays instead of trying to do what I'm doing right now. So congrats to Pat on this week. But yeah, I do think you're right. I probably don't need any of that.
My last two guys are going to be Bryce Garnett and Ben Martin at $61,000 and $6,000.
And I'm going to round it out with Eric Cole.
Well, I win. You're going to miss the cut.
Wow.
Easy game.
Mean. So Rory, Scott, Pendrith, Hogard, Rio, Hisetsune with Eric Cole to round it out. I got my number here. What's your lineup?
Mine is Alex Noren, Cam Young, and Shane Lowry. With Akshay Bhatia, Bryce Garnett, and Ben Martin.
Garnett and Ben Martin. And currently have you by 10, but that's the Rory effect. So, yeah, I mean, that's good. We're both good lineups, projections-wise. Mine projects more because of Rory.
Okay.
So,
I like it. I'm going to win this week. Feeling good about that lineup.
10-9-9-8 with 2 6s. I like that. Skips the entire 7K range and fades Rory up top.
It would be better, I suppose, if there was a lot of chalk in the sevens, which there just isn't. There's a lot of people that are just fading the sevens, it seems like.
In some way, shape, or form, yeah. But I mean, like, it's just because there's only 16 guys there. It's just going to be very balanced again. Like, you really just have to realize that and play against that and use that to your advantage if you can, because you know what the ownership's going to be set up like this week.
Who are my best fairway guys this week? Rye, Berger, Kraft, Garnett, Lowry, Silverman. Of just guys that are in my player pool right now. Tom Kim, Noren, Lipsky, Chan Kim, Ben Martin, Bhatia, Power, Svensson. All those guys are in the top 50 in this field in accuracy. And like aren't terrible players.
I just listened to some just to make sure and see what I could get out of it. Who is Lowry was in there?
Yep.
Okay, was Cam Young in there?
No.
Was did you say
Of the top end guys.
Oh, was Mitchell in there?
No. I didn't have Mitchell in my player pool.
What about Nick Taylor?
He's not my player pool.
Okay, so I couldn't find it. I have 10K left on what I found.
Tommy is the guy who's top 10 in accuracy of the expensive guys.
Tommy Fleetwood?
Fleetwood and Lowry are the two best accuracy players from the top, along with Rye.
Yeah, I'm $100 shy of Lowry, and like Berger dropping down to 6K. I don't think I heard Pendrith or any of those guys that were in your pool.
Noren would be up there.
I've got Noren in the lineup, so I didn't want to pull him down to Cam Young. I asked just in case. At Lipsky, you did say Lipsky.
I did.
And I put him, but I don't see anyone else down there. If I take Lipsky out, who were like was there any 7K guys in there that you had?
No, weirdly enough. Like the best accuracy player from the sevens are Hubbard and Gim.
Hubbard and Gim.
And then it's Ryu.
Well, funny enough, it closes on Hubbard and Gim.
There we go. So what's the lineup?
There's your lineup. Put this one somewhere. You got Noren, and then you roll with Aaron Rye, Akshay Bhatia, Hubbard, Berger, and Gim.
Noren, Rye, Akshay, Hubbard, and Gim.
Yeah, and it lands you on your boy. How's your burger?
Oh, there
Daniel,
we go.
how's your burger?
How is your burger? That'll be nice to see. So Berger, I'm missing one here. Who was the other one?
It was Gim, Berger, Hubbard was the roundup.
Hubbard was the one.
Yeah. And again, extremely balanced, but man, that looks like there could be a winner in there. And that looks like...
There could be a lot of guys who come T23 in this lineup.
What if that's good enough?
Maybe it is. Maybe everyone comes T16 and we're good.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I do think it's just to take away from some of the stuff you look at there and just build a lineup off it. I never hate that, and this is what made yours up, so I like it.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience for the Canadian Open. I got Davis on the show tomorrow. That'll
Nice.
be fun.
Yeah.
I think we're talking best ball.
It's coming around.
I haven't done any NFL drafts yet,
Yep.
so I got to figure out what to do.
Get in the action.
I got it. I got to talk to someone about it. Can't talk to you about it.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's not my forte. I'll listen in, but it's more, it's growing in popularity every single year. And they, on Underdog, made the payout structure really nice this year, too.
Yeah, there's I think $35 single entry one that's up there right now. We might draft a team in that. Just got to figure out what stacks that I want to go through. Like I get the concept, I get the strategy. It's just I'm not all the way up on what I should be doing because I haven't done any of the drafts yet.
Yeah, you get way ahead on this stuff too, and that's the problem for me is I don't do enough. You're with Jake and those guys and figuring out stuff well in advance on the stuff going on in the NFL right now, and I sort of let it just stay at the back until we get closer and focus on it from the DFS angle. That's the difference.
Well, if you want to participate in one of those drafts, you need an Underdog account. No better place to do that with at Underdog Fantasy than with code Mayo. $250 deposit bonus up to, if that's what you want to go put in. Plus, we might have a very special announcement about Pick'Em and the Pat Mayo experience for golf, and then hopefully for football as well as we go through. So support the show. Use code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy right now and fill up the Pat Mayo Experience Classic on Underdog, and maybe use some of Lee's rankings at shipitnation.com. Code Mayo over there as well.
Yeah, do code Mayo. Even if you're like, people always say, oh, you all access, all this. This is the golf show. Go sign up. There's a PGA only package. It's $39. You use code Mayo, you get it for $33. It's basically $1 a day. We're going to have all kinds of events coming up. We got the RBC Canadian Open this week, the Memorial, big signature event. We got the US Open, a major. You said it, I think Travelers is also a signature this year. So you got travel. I mean, now is the time to go do it. Go use code Mayo at shipitnation.com. Check it all out and get Lee's Course Fit rankings, the Stone from Degenerate 75, and then hop in that Discord with us, just chatting it up right up to lock and after tilting, of course, as well.
All right. Smash the like while you're here. Sub to the channel. And if you do want to get in on a potential Tambo giveaway, start leaving those ratings and reviews on the audio podcast right now and sub to the newsletter. A fresh one will be coming out on Wednesday evening with all the final plays and all of the final information. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. We'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience.